Hey, gang, there's some really, truly stupid stuff that goes on in the music business. And yes, I know we've heard it before, but I just had a chat with a very old, dear friend of mine. He's probably one of the most successful executives in the music business. And he heads a huge company that's hugely successful. And he's been doing it for well over 30 years. And I'm fortunate that he still takes my calls and I can reach out to him and pick his brain when I need something. And that's not super often, but when I really, really need it, he's there for me. So I'm extremely thankful for that. And we don't always agree. We've worked together, but we don't always agree. And I guess it's the creative side versus the business side. However, there are some incredibly stupid things going on in the music business, maybe more than ever. And for once, he agreed with me. And here's what's happening. So he was ranting and raving justifiably about the algorithm. He's like, the algorithm. And what he meant was, it's not making music fun anymore. Like, even the executives people, like the executive side, they got in this because they loved music. I mean, whether you believe it or not, it's true. And it's not fun anymore for them. So imagine how it is for us creating, right? They don't always see that side. But it's not fun for them because what happens is you're chasing the algorithm. The algorithm makes it difficult to break new bands that don't fit into the narrow corridor that the algorithm finds itself like that. It zones in like this, right? And it narrows down to this. And then you don't see what's out here or out here so much, right? You really, when we were growing up, we would search out those things, but you'd still get a hint of it, right? Like somewhere, maybe through a friend, maybe through a friend's older brother or sister, maybe through some late night radio programming where they just threw some crazy person on who appealed to us and played some left of center stuff, or fanzines, right? There were fanzines when we were growing up, sometimes self-published, sometimes that grew into bigger things, and music magazines. But now it's the algorithm. And he was lamenting that because of the algorithm, it's hard to break acts. And it doesn't make it fun anymore because the algorithm is so narrow. I pointed out to him that the algorithm changes too. And he's like, what do you mean it changes? And I'm like, well, I said, for instance, after the shutdown of TikTok for those few days, that whole sham, then afterwards, it was completely different. I mean, nobody will say it was the same because your views were different. The people who you were interacting with was different. And it's been changing for every 6 weeks roughly since then. And a lot of people will chime in and tell you this. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm just talking about music. It's like, they want you all to fit into this thing. And I go, I get it. I'm not arguing with you there. I said, if you remember, I started screaming about streaming 10 years ago, maybe more. Because I think I first got exposed to Spotify in 2009 when I was living in Norway, because remember it started in Sweden 2 years earlier. And by 2009, it was pretty popular there. It wasn't super duper big here yet. It was just starting to make inroads. And I said to myself, I don't know about this. I get the convenience and I get why, the regular average listener will love it, but I just didn't understand. And he's like, yeah, I know you've been railing about this for some time. And he's like, you're right. And for once, he admitted I was right. Because that whole realm led to this algorithm being narrowed, right? So that whole the streaming as a whole has now made it go like this, all the way down to this. And so he's having trouble, as is apparently his fellow executives, marketing music outside of that narrow algorithm. And he says it's not fun. I agree. It's not fun. And it must be horrible for young acts starting out who don't have a legacy to build off of, to at least go out and play. Everybody's always like, yeah, but you can go out and tour. Well, you can't tour until you get to be a certain size, or else you're losing money on the road. You have to be at least have a certain amount of popularity to make money on the road and to sell merch. That's for another time. So that was the first part of our conversation. The second part was, I said, look, I'm calling you about, I got this new record coming out and I want to make sure that I get it into the right hands. And I explained to him that I just found out that my label in Germany that put out my last two records, they keep sending me these statements, right? And in every statement, I owe them money. And I'm like, well, okay, they must have a ton of records sitting in the warehouse somewhere. So I called them and I said, look, help me out here and I'll help you out. I said, obviously from these statements, and this is what I was explaining to my friend, I said, I told them, I said, if obviously I owe you money, which means you must have a ton of my records sitting in the warehouse. So let's do this. You help me get a tour together for next year. I will book my own dates, but you help me connect the dots in between and in the territories that you need me to do it, so that we sell whatever's left in the warehouse, right? Sounds totally reasonable. They come back to me and they're like, oh, we've sold out of everything of yours. I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, in December of 2019, we sold out of everything. I'm like, both albums? And they're like, both albums. Vinyl and CD? Yes, vinyl and CD. Everything. To wit, my friend says to me, well, why didn't they repress? Yeah, duh. Like, why didn't they repress? And then my next question was, why do I still owe them money? So he says to me, oh, that's because of whatever, promotion and pressing and whatever. And I said, okay, so I still owe them money for promotion and pressing, yet they've sold out of everything. And I still owe them money, but they didn't repress. And he's like, yeah, that's insane. So I'm like, how does this work? How is this smart in any way? You're telling me that I owe you money still, yet I've sold out of everything and you didn't repress so that you could make money and that I don't owe you money anymore. Meanwhile, I didn't tour for those two records that they had. I didn't do any promotion. So all they must have done was send it out to press and press records. And I still owe them money, but you don't repress. Completely freaking insane. And my buddy in America, big music executive dude, agreed. He's like, this makes no sense. And I'm like, yep, makes no sense. So there's some really stupid things going on in the music business. How can I survive as an artist? How can anybody survive if they're going to take away promotion and pressing? But even when it does sell, I'm still in the hole. Like, how the hell does that work? That cannot be a model for anything healthy in the music business. Furthermore, my buddy has a point about this algorithm, which all filtered down from streaming. Nobody's getting paid from streaming. It's now you have to get a certain amount. They keep changing, they keep moving the guidepost, right? Now, if you don't get a certain amount of spins, a certain amount of plays, then you're not getting paid at all anyway. It's not even registering. And then the algorithm gets narrower and narrower to the point where a really successful, long-time music executive that almost everybody respects, and he does have a ton of respect in the business, wants to quit. He wants to quit because it's not fun anymore. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And first of all, is these contracts where I still owe you money and I have no way to get out of this. Like, somebody made money off of those records. You can't tell me that the percentage that was made of profit off of that didn't cover promotion and pressing. Like, I know what promotion and pressing costs. And then this whole thing about the algorithm, like, how do you break new acts? I don't know. But we created a monster and we've let it loose, and now it's impossible to get it back into its cage. What do you think? What's your experience been? I want to hear from some of you out there. Let me know, because I'm sure there's even worse stories than this. This is just the most recent that's literally just landed in my lap. All right? Thanks for watching. Catch you later. We can fix this.